If you're waiting to get your hands on a white iPhone 4, you got to keep waiting. Apple has delayed the release of the phone's white model for the second time, saying the white ones are harder to manufacture than expected.
And the white iPhone 4 is the least of Apple's problems. The company's been contending with criticism over the design of the phone's antenna, which results in diminished signal strength. And one of those criticisms that went a long way came from Consumer Reports. The magazine refused to recommend the iPhone 4 because of the antenna problem. That and other reviews show the 74-year-old magazine isn't messing around. The story of Consumer Reports and its effect on America's consumer culture is in the latest edition of Bloomberg Businessweek. And reporter Devin Leonard wrote the story, his first appearance on Bloomberg TV. Good to see you. Thank you so much for coming on. They're not messing around, are they? They put this out. They said they can't recommend that, and it started Antennagate. It started a shockwave. Tell us about this.
Well, I mean, it's just a great story. It's the 74-year-old, fusty old media company, just doing what they've always done, testing and just putting out the word and letting the chips fall where they may. And they tested the iPhone, and I guess there's a ton of buzz on the internet that it wasn't working, but when the antenna, that is, when they came out and said it, that just stopped Apple in its tracks.
Well, and you have some pictures from inside of Consumer Reports offices. I mean, it's pretty high-tech stuff. We have here the dummy. I mean, we heard from Consumer Reports directly that they were in sort of an isolation chamber and figured out exactly that it was indeed the antenna that was what was malfunctioning, not software, not some of the other factors.
No, they're very thorough, and when they're challenged, they keep all sorts of records, all sorts of video to back it up, and they've been sued 17 times. They've never lost a lawsuit. One of them went all the way to the Supreme Court, and they won that one too. So.
You know, it's interesting. I noticed because in part of the article, it's written that they paused Apple's juggernaut. If people did not think that Consumer Reports had influence before, they know now, don't they?
No, I mean, just Apple's been on such a roll. It's just incredible. All through the recession, nothing's stopping them. And of course, Consumer Reports didn't stop them, but it made them pause. It made Steve Jobs come out and admit that he was a mistake, that they were human. And I think that's a big thing for him to say.
What would the founder of the magazine have thought about this? About Consumer Reports going up against this titan?
Well, I think going up against titans has always been their business, but in terms of mixing it up with somebody over an antenna problem, and a lot of this reportage that they did was on the internet, so it's sort of all part of their new business plan. I mean, the one thing, they did not really dwell much on high-end products for years and years and years, and that's something they've only really done in the last 10 years.
Are there other ways of sort of measuring its influence? But I mean, this is obviously a recent sort of anecdotal big example. But what are some other examples of some big effects it's had?
Oh, geez, their testing and coverage of cigarettes in the 50s led to the Surgeon General, I guess, making a landmark recommendation about the dangers of tobacco in 1964.
And getting that on cigarette packages, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And then shortly thereafter, their testing and their criticism of the toy industry led to similar, actually legislation, laws, and there's a long list of that stuff.
And it's a non-profit organization, we should say, also.
No, they don't take any ads, and they are making money. They are in the red, but yes, it's owned by Consumers Union, a nonprofit advocacy group.
Could I mention, because usually people say it's like it's your father's magazine, but they recently went after younger people, didn't they?
Yeah, well, I still think it is your father's magazine, but they did.
Trying not to be, maybe.
Yeah, well, they did buy the Consumerist from Nick Denton's Gawker Media blog empire, so that's definitely not your father reading that, I don't think.
And that's
not mine.
And that's usually what we see, a magazine of Consumer Reports. And for a lot of people, the buying guide, it's usually about cars. If you're going to buy something, the first thing you do is start thumbing through your Consumer Reports. Devin, thanks so much. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Guys.
Thanks for coming on. Devin Leonard, who's afraid of Steve Jobs.